Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week we are thinking about Thomas's encounter with Jesus, which helped move him from unbelief to belief. And I've been thinking about this week and thinking about the challenge it is for us as church communities to help people move from unbelief to belief. It may be that your journey was a quick and simple one. Years ago, there used to be many evangelistic big rallies where people made a commitment to belief at those kind of big events. But the research shows that actually people tend to take a slower, a longer path. Certainly some research a little while ago said that it took between 2 and 7 years for people to come to make a commitment from the beginning of their exploration of faith. So it's a real challenge for us in places where we have very small church communities. There are some good patterns of tools that can be used for people in urban areas, but in rural communities, what can we do? How can we help people? How can we give people those tools that they need to make this journey from unbelief to belief? And it's a challenge for each of us. We can look back and we can think about how it was for us. But the world has changed and everybody's circumstances have changed. How can we be most helpful to those people in our villages, in the places where we live and work? And how can we provide the tools that they need to help them to move from unbelief to belief? This week in Thought for the Week, we're thinking about Thomas, and the passage that we have is John 20, starting at verse 19, going through to the end of the chapter. And it describes Jesus appearing to the disciples, and Thomas isn't there, so Thomas struggles to believe. And then it describes what happens when Jesus then reappears to the disciples when Thomas is there. And Jesus says, come on, put your fingers where my wounds are. I was dead, but now I've been resurrected. And Thomas believes, and then we have a little closure about the book. And I love this story. I love this story because it talks about God and Jesus in a way which I think is really important and sometimes gets lost in our understanding of God. So when we think about the God of the Old Testament, he's a really complex God, and some people want to paint the God of the Old Testament as a very angry, vengeful God, full of wrath. And there are bits where we see that God is a strong, powerful God. And we hear all sorts of things in the prophecies there. And we know that Jesus could be angry too. Jesus had times when he was angry too. Think about when he turned over the tables in the temple, and that was a difficult time, and he was really angry. I mean, there are some things. Some people might say that Jesus was also rude to his mum, and not very nice to the Pharisees, and angry with the Pharisees and some of the religious leaders in particular. But Jesus is not angry with Thomas. He could have been. He could have chosen anger as the root, the kind of why are you so full of unbelief kind of aspect with Thomas. He could have been really cross with him, but he wasn't really cross with him. He very carefully and in a very thought out way gave Thomas what he needed to believe. He gave Thomas what he needed to believe. He wasn't cross, he wasn't angry, he just said, look, here are my hands. Here is what you need. You need some reassurance that this is true, then this is what you need to experience. So touch my hands, touch my sides, the kind of know that I was dead and now I am alive. Thomas is my favourite disciple, and sorry Peter, sorry John, but he is asking the questions that people are too scared to ask. He asks the questions we think about in John 14 in particular. Jesus says, and you know the way to the place where I am going, and Thomas is the one who puts his hand up and admits, no, I don't know the way. But Thomas is full of faith. He's full of faith, and Thomas also says earlier in the Gospels, if Jesus is going to Jerusalem to die, we should go and die with him. He has that strength of his conviction. And so when we think about Thomas, we shouldn't call him Doubting Thomas. We should think, well, this was Thomas and he struggled to believe, but Jesus gave him what he needed to believe. And that is my prayer for all of us this week, that if we are struggling to believe, or there's something that we're struggling with our belief about, that actually we'll be in a position to say to God, look, I'm struggling with this, and he'll be able to go to us, it's okay, here is what you need to believe. The Dibley Moment of the week this week is something which happened when I did my first and only full immersion baptism in a village church. We hired a baptismal pool, we built it, we lined it, we filled it with water, we put the pool heater in. We thought we were following the instructions pretty precisely, although they did say only experience will teach you how long it will take to heat up your pool. Next morning I went in very relieved to find that the pool was still full of water, and so pleased to find that the pool was full of very warm water. Not too hot, but much warmer than the rest of the church building. So we didn't get cold at all while we were doing this beautiful full immersion baptism, but it was chilly when we got out. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week where your belief will increase throughout your community.